Hello, boys and girls and babes. Welcome back to the Jenaya Talks Caps podcast. As always, thank you all so much for tuning in today. And we would like to invite you, if you haven't already done so, to please go ahead and subscribe to our podcast if you're enjoying your time here. We are available across all major podcast platforms, and we are going to be having new content coming your way all summer long, from the finishing up of the Stanley Cup Playoffs to the NHL entry draft, where the Caps will hold the 8th overall pick, in addition, of course, to the many other picks that they also do have, and right through free agency, any trades that might happen. There's a very interesting coaching search that's going on right now for the Caps as well, so we will be right here for you through it all, bringing you the content that the people want, right? So please, if you are, like I said, enjoying your time here, please do go ahead and click on that subscribe button, as we would love to have you along for this ride with us. And as far as this week's show goes, we have got a whole lot to talk about, including a Stanley Cup drought that is going to stretch past the 30-year mark for my home country of Canada. And I mean, hey, you know what? To be fair, I never really do get too riled up about this so-called Canadian Cup drought thing. I actually really don't buy it at all, if I'm being honest. I think it's kind of a complete load of baloney. Because, as much as people want to say, oh, Canada hasn't won a cup in 30 years, listen, the teams that are winning, they might be based in the United States, right? That might be where they play their home games. But as far as where the players, where the players are from, the players who are playing and winning the games for those teams, where are they from originally, right? Most of them are Canadian. That's always been true, and that still continues to be true. The Vegas Golden Knights actually are the most Canadian team in the league. They have the most Canadian players right now, and they are onto the Final Four right now. So I'm just saying, the whole Canadian Cup drought thing, everybody loves to tweet that at me, comment that at me. It's a bit of a gimmick, if you ask me. It's not really true, because like I said, most of these players playing in the Final Four right now are Canadian. So I just had to throw that out there. Obviously, being a proud Canadian myself, it is still our game. We've got all of those Olympic golds and World Championship golds and World Junior golds and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on and on and on. We've got all of those to prove it, right? I'm just saying, my fellow Canadians listening to this podcast, they will feel me on this one. But hey, you know what? What is happening right now in terms of the teams that are in the conference finals, in the Final Four, it is great for growing the game of hockey. I know that a lot of traditional hockey fans, the real hockey purists, if you will, they'll say, hey, this sucks. Florida, Vegas, etc., these guys don't deserve it, right? And I get that point of view. I do. I can definitely see and understand that perspective. It is tough sometimes to watch a team that, can't even sell out their own building during a playoff run. It's why did these guys deserve to go on this playoff run if they don't even care that much, right? So I get that. I do. But do you know what makes people care? Do you know what gets fans invested, what draws in new fans, fans who are going to now be fans for the rest of their lives? Winning, right? Winning does that. Winning creates new fans. Winning builds bonds with a team, with a franchise that are going to be there forever. And now, moving ahead into the future, those fans are going to be coming back for more next year and the year after that and the year after that and so on and so forth. So as a person who just loves the game of hockey and who wants the game of hockey to do well, this is important. This is an important year for the game of hockey, for the NHL specifically. It is important every once in a while to have these non-traditional teams, these non-traditional markets, if you will, to go on a big run like this, because like I said, it creates new fans. It does. That's the research. So, I'm all for it in that way, at least, in growing the game and bringing in new fans and making fans for life. But hey, there will be plenty of time to talk about these 4 teams that are in the conference finals, those being the Florida Panthers, the Carolina Hurricanes, the Vegas Golden Knights, the Dallas Stars. There will be plenty of time for it because we know that they are going to be playing for at least a week or 2 more here. And so for today, I want to talk about a couple of the teams that have run out of time on their seasons. And yes, as I mentioned off the top, those 2 teams are the 2 Canadian teams that were in the second round, those being the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Edmonton Oilers. the reason why these are the two teams that I want to talk about today is because these were probably the two biggest upsets, if you want to call it that, of the second round. Because, first of all, both the Leafs and the Oilers were, I would say, unceremoniously booted from the playoffs, not only earlier than they themselves expected, but earlier than most of the mainstream media, I found, expected as well. So the Leafs elimination, that came first in Game 5 against the 8th-seeded Florida Panthers, and then the Oilers, they were eliminated just a couple of days later in Game 6 against the Vegas Golden Knights. And listen, just so you guys know, when I talk about the mainstream media, like I said, I'm Canadian, I live in Canada, and so just so you guys know, I just want to make it clear, I am not one of those Canadians who roots for the Canadian-based NHL teams just because they're Canadian-based. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't really give a shit about that. And I really don't like either of these two teams either, the Leafs or the Oilers, for a variety of different reasons. And I could list probably 100 of them, but we'd be here all day. But I will tell you that one reason, like I said, talking about the media, one reason why a lot of Canadians don't and won't cheer for the Leafs or the Oilers is because for as long as the Leafs and the Oilers seasons are still alive, the media up here in Canada literally will not shut the fuck up about them. Seriously, you have never heard a station talk about a team that's had as little success as the Toronto Maple Leafs have, as much as Sportsnet up here talks about this Leafs team. It's pathetic. You would think that Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner and co. have 5 Stanley Cups already, the way that they talk about these guys. They talk about nothing but these guys, but this team, that being the Leafs. And, you would never know that this is a team that's won one single playoff series in the last 20 years. You would never know it. And same with the Oilers, by the way. Sure, they haven't been as pathetic as the Leafs have been. They've at least won some series here and there, right? But really, what have they really accomplished to get this amount of airtime? Absolutely nothing at all up to this point. Certainly nothing, like I said, worth writing home about or dedicating an entire 60-minute Sportsnet show to, right? So I'm not even kidding you, and I'm sure that anyone else who also lives up here can attest. But like I said, you would never even know that there are 5 other Canadian teams playing in this league as well. You'd never know it because they never talk about them. I don't think anyone on that entire Sportsnet panel could name even 3 players on the Winnipeg Jets roster, for example. No joke. It's pathetic. And so every year when the clock strikes midnight again on the Leafs and Oilers seasons, because it does every year, it's an annual thing, right? We just wait for it every year. A lot of people joke that it's like Christmas in April every year. So yeah, every year when the clock again strikes midnight on the Leafs and Oilers seasons, and Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid, they turn back into pumpkins, right? We all up here in Canada, we all rejoice because we can, like I said, once again, turn on a sports show on TV without having to pull the old, Mike Milbury and throw a shoe at it, because it's so frustrating. You listen to them over and over and over again talk about these two teams, and it's what have they done? What have they done to deserve this amount of airtime? Like I said, I'd like to once in a while hear about, the Winnipeg Jets, the Calgary Flames. I'm from, I live in Vancouver, the Vancouver Canucks, anyone else, just talk about anyone else. At least let us know that there's 5 other teams in this country, you guys. And so the Leafs and the Oilers, what happened to these two teams? Because really, like I said, if you listen to Sportsnet up here in Canada, the Leafs were supposed to sweep the Panthers and the Oilers were supposed to sweep the Golden Knights. It was supposed to be an easy cakewalk of a series and a cakewalk into the conference finals for both of these teams, supposedly. So what happened? Well, first of all, neither the Leafs nor the Oilers are as good as Sportsnet would have you believe. If you saw my takes from before either of these series began, you would have heard me saying that the Panthers' forecheck was going to eat the Maple Leafs alive, and that Edmonton's only chance of winning the series against Vegas was if the Oilers were going to get a shitload of power plays, that was their only hope and their only chance, because otherwise the Golden Knights are the far superior team at 5-on-5, and so as long as the series was going to be played primarily at 5-on-5, the Golden Knights were going to win. That's what I said. And I have the receipts. You can go back and listen to the previous podcast episodes. So, and well, I hate to say I told you so, although my bracket is looking very good for it. But that pretty much is exactly what happened in both of those series. Like I said, I'm not trying to toot my own horn too much for it, but it is just what happened, right? So we have to talk about it here. The Florida Panthers forecheck completely dominated the Maple Leafs. The Leafs defense was completely overmatched and overwhelmed. Former Caps goaltender Ilya Samsonov, he didn't help matters either. Like, he was basically trash in goal until he got injured again and was replaced by Joseph Woll. Samsonov, he let in a number of soul-crushing, super weak goals against in these playoffs. Please stop me if you've heard that one before. And ultimately, the so-called shining stars of the Maple Leafs, they were more like dimly lit IKEA light bulbs, I guess. I don't know. Like, seriously, let's get real for a minute here. Let's toss some numbers around. So the Maple Leafs, they pay Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, and John Tavares a combined, this is a big number, $33.5 million per season, right? So Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, John Tavares, a combined $33.5 million per season. In their 5-game series against the 8th-seeded Florida Panthers, who, like I said, they were supposedly supposed to steamroll these guys. They were supposed to sweep them. Austin Matthews, $11.64 million per season, did not score a single goal. John Tavares, an even $11 million per season, did not score a single goal. Mitch Marner, at $10.9 million per season. He's the cheap one. He scored 1 goal in the series, and it was a floating wrist shot from the blue line that found its way in. So the Maple Leafs just paid $33.5 million for 1 single fucking goal. And it wasn't even a nice goal. I know in the playoffs, it's like a goal is a goal is a goal. Who cares, right? And that's true if you win. But if you're going to bend over and bow out in 5 games anyway, the least that you could do for $10.9 million is to make your 1 lonely goal a highlight reel goal at least. Come on. It's a floating wrist shot from the blue line. Leafs fans act as if that was money well spent. Easy to say when it's not your money, I guess, but I suspect ownership probably has a different take on it. These guys were pathetic, all of them. Matthews, beyond pathetic. Marner, beyond pathetic. Tavares, he would have been the most pathetic player on the ice if Matthews and Marner weren't there. And they've been pathetic every single year. It's going on 8 straight years for Leafs fans now that these guys can't get anything done in the playoffs. And please spare me the Ovechkin and the Caps comparisons, because you know what? The difference between Ovechkin's Caps when they hadn't won yet and the Maple Leafs now, the difference is that Caps management never bothered to surround Ovechkin with anyone to help him win in this, a team sport, right? Up until, of course, George McPhee was finally fired and Brian McClellan replaced him. That's when they actually started surrounding Ovechkin with complementary pieces. And so that didn't really begin. McClellan didn't really get to start getting things done until 2015, 2016. And then they won the whole damn thing just a couple of years later in 2018. And by the way, the other big difference is that Ovechkin himself always produced. He always produced in the playoffs. He just, like I said, he didn't have anyone surrounding him in terms of secondary scoring or defense or any of that other stuff that you need in order to win. And so as soon as they went out and got a general manager who was willing to go out and get that stuff, right? It was boom, a couple of short years later, and they won the cup. They won the whole damn thing, like I said. So please don't come at me, Leafs fans, with these asinine Ovechkin and the Caps comparisons. They're silly because, like I said, it's a totally different situation. And the big difference, as I said, is that Ovechkin always produced in the playoffs. He just, like I said, he didn't get any help at all from his general manager for the longest time in terms of actually building a team capable of winning around him. Matthews and Marner and the Leafs, on the other hand, that's the difference, right? Your general manager out there, Kyle Dubas, he has done absolutely everything to give these goofballs, Matthews and Marner and co., everything that they could possibly need in order to succeed. The Leafs organization has given these guys everything. Look at this season. Ryan O'Reilly, Conn Smythe winner in 2019. Jake McCabe, Noel Acciari, Sam Lafferty, Luke Shen. Am I missing anyone? I'm sure I probably am missing someone because Kyle Dubas literally brought in everyone at the trade deadline in order to help Matthews and Marner and co succeed. And still, the big boys, they do not produce. Still. Like, seriously, if you look at it, the secondary scoring, the depth for the Leafs had a pretty good run, right? Like Ryan O'Reilly, Noel Acciari, Sam Lafferty, all of those guys scored some pretty clutch goals for you guys at key times, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Luke Shen also literally play himself onto your top pairing by playoffs end? Like most Leafs fans I've talked with said that he turned out to be your best defenseman other than Morgan Riley. So the trade deadline additions, the depth guys were coming through for you, right? Which means that your general manager's job was done well. But yet once again, it was again your star players who are letting you guys down. $33.5 million for 1 second round goal. I mean, I'll let you guys decide for yourselves if that's good enough for you or not, but if it is good enough for you, then you may want to adjust your goal of wanting to see your team win a Stanley Cup. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, I mean, just a totally different scenario, like I said, from the Caps with Ovechkin when they hadn't yet won. I'm just saying, I have to put it out there. Like, Ovi always produced like an animal in the playoffs. It was management who was incompetent in building a supporting cast for so many years. For the Leafs, it seems like management has built a hell of a supporting cast for you guys. But the supporting cast can't win the Stanley Cup on their own if the star players are going to treat the Stanley Cup playoffs like a Tuesday night in beer league every year. And like I said, it's been going on 8 years now. We've been watching this shit. I know, like I said, because they play it over and over and over again on Sportsnet. It's all they talk about. It's not that I'm a Leafs fan. It's not that I'm like, ooh, let me watch all the Leafs games. No, it's shoved in my face. It's shoved down my throat, as it is with everyone in Canada. So it's hard to miss. So I'm sorry that we have to talk about it. But it's, like I said, it's been going on for 8 years now that we've been watching this shit from these players. And, like, it's got to get old at some point, doesn't it? You would think so. So it should be an interesting summer in Leafs Nation. But, hey, I mean, I'm just going to say it. The way that these guys on the Leafs, the players down there, throw in the coach, too, really, the coaching staff, Sheldon Keefe, but especially the players, like, the way that these guys were celebrating as if they had literally just won the frickin' Stanley Cup after winning just one single round. And one single round in 20 years, I might add. And like Matthews, Marner, all of these guys are doing the beer and champagne showers in the locker room afterwards after winning one round. Like, I don't know who in charge. Like I said, if it was Sheldon Keefe or Kyle Dubas, I don't know. But I don't know who in charge gave the green light for that one. But like, it's not a good look, right? So, man, do these guys ever deserve this? Do they ever deserve all of the shit that they're getting from everyone right now? They deserve it. They do. Like, you got to walk the walk before you talk the talk, man. Karma's a bitch. And speaking of bitches, as we mentioned off the top, Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid and the Oilers have also been eliminated. And, man, like, Leon Draisaitl has got to be the biggest bitch in the entire league. Like, the more that I watch this guy play, the more that I just lose all respect for him. Like, he's out there, he's swimming around on the ice, he's diving every time a light breeze blows past his way, like looking up at the refs for another call. Give me another power play. I can't do anything at 5-on-5. Please give me another power play. He gave Alex Pietrangelo the old fake, like, I'm gonna get you air slash in game 6. You remember, like, Caps fans remember, like, it was just like the one that the Bruins guy, I can't remember who it was now. I think it was maybe Rich Peverly. But you'll remember he did that to a rookie, Braden Holtby, back in the 2012 playoffs, right? And Holtby, like, literally didn't even flinch, and he just stared him down like, what the fuck are you doing, bro? Well, yeah, Draisaitl, he gave Pietrangelo one of those, and it looked every bit as stupid and childish and petulant and foolish as when the Bruins did it. So it was pretty much karma that the Golden Knights would win the game, win the series, and send Draisaitl packing with a full diaper. I believe they said that Draisaitl had 0 goals and just 1 single assist over the last 4 games of that series. So probably should have spent less time air slashing and more time scoring goals and helping your team win. But whatever, that's not my concern. As I mentioned earlier, I could not give two shits if they are eliminated. And so both of the Canadian teams that were remaining in the second round have been bounced. And as a result, like I said, we can all now go back to our regularly scheduled programming up here in Canada. I can watch Sportsnet without having them randomly throwing Austin Matthews in my face without warning, tricking me into thinking that my dog must have sat on the remote and changed it to an episode of Narcos when I wasn't looking. I thought that dude's playoff mustache would maybe get a little bit better if they were ever to make it out of the first round. But boy, was I wrong. It somehow got even worse. So, like I said, we can go now back to our regularly scheduled programming. And you know what? I'll say it because you guys loved, like I said, tweeted at me, Canada's cup drought, so-called cup drought. It will continue for at least another year. It's pushing past 30 years now. It was 1993, the last time that a Canadian-based team won the Stanley Cup. So I was born in 1991, so I was 2 years old the last time like I said, a Canadian-based team won the Stanley Cup. So I don't even remember it. It was the Montreal Canadiens. I don't even remember it. Like I said, I was 2 years old. So anyways, that is going to be it for us today, folks. I wanted to thank you all again so much for listening. Thank you for being here. You all make this show, seriously. There would not be a point to doing this show without all of you, as you guys are what make this show really fun to do. So thank you again so much from the bottom of my heart. We will chat again real soon, and until then, and as always, babes, let's go Caps.